Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to USTA Florida's Here to Serve podcast. My name is Laura Bowen, and I'm the Executive Director at USTA Florida. And we're tackling a very popular topic today as we head into the end of summer, and that is the sanctioning process. And I have two of our resident experts here to help answer some key questions about how the sanctioning process works and how those of you who are out there and want to run USTA tournaments can do that. First up, joining me is Tracy Davies. Tracy is the Managing Director of Recreational Competition at the USTA. Thank you for joining us, Tracy.
Thank you, Laura. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you. And joining Tracy is Nolan Brewer. Nolan is actually our tournaments and serve tennis coordinator at USTA Florida, or as I like to call him, he is the master of the tournament lands for USTA Florida. He does an incredible job for us. So welcome to the podcast, Nolan. It's great to have you join us as well.
Thanks, Laura. Good to be back.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. For those maybe who are new to the podcast and aren't familiar with either of you, could you tell us a little bit about your background in tennis and specifically in the tournament space? And Tracy, I thought I'd start with you.
Yeah, so I have to go back to my playing days. I played at University of Tennessee, and then went straight to Florida. And one of my first jobs was as director of player development for USTA Florida at the time. Laura, before your time.
Yes.
It gave me a good opportunity to really be in the state that runs some of my most high-profile events in the country and be part of that at a young age and learn. I went on from there a little bit more into coaching, worked for national player development, spent some time overseas in Australia, South Africa, worked some for the ITF, and then came back into my current job as managing director of recreational competition. I think the thing from my perspective, I've been in this role for 5 years. And it's really, we've had a lot of changes, as we'll talk a little bit about today, in the competitive structure, how the climate's changed with COVID, and just different, different traits in our customers and providers as we move forward. There's been a lot that's changed in the tournament space. So I'm happy to share that with everyone today and talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, I love, Tracy, that you have experience both as a player and a coach in this space, and obviously your background in Florida tennis, as well as the national level, makes you such a perfect person to have on this podcast for a lot of reasons. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thank
And
you.
Nolan, you have an equally diverse and interesting background connected to Florida. Would you like to share a little bit about your background in tennis and particularly in the tournament space now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I am very much a product of USTA Florida. Grew up playing Florida tennis, Florida tournaments as a junior. Went into college and played, and then after college, stuck with tennis. It gave me the opportunity to travel abroad and work as well within the industry, which was really exciting. And again, just as a young post grad, seeing the world and growing professionally and personally, it's been an awesome opportunity to do all of that through tennis as well. I've been with USTA Florida since early 2020. Came in specifically, my title was youth individual play coordinator, but still very much involved with tournaments and with sanctioning of tournaments, particularly in the junior space. Now more so in adult, junior, and wheelchair tournaments, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, I've been doing this ever since I've been with USTA Florida, so coming up on 3 years now.
And we're very lucky to have you. In many ways, as I'm listening to you talk, both of you have experiences that are kind of like mirrors of each other, which is, really a blessing to us. So it's like we get two people who have had these amazing experiences coming up in tennis, experience in Florida tennis, going abroad, coming back, and now broadening what they do to cover more than just the youth space. So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. I did want to start with more of a basic question, which is, when we talk about sanctioning, I think there are a lot of people that don't know what that means. Sometimes I'll get calls about, like, you ran this tournament, and I'm like, did we though? Which is always kind of a fun question. Like, okay, explain to me which tournament you're talking about. So Tracy, I would love for you to share what it means when USTA sanctions a national tournament. What permissions or benefits does a sanction provide, and what restrictions are included in that? And then I'll have a follow-up question for you, Nolan.
Right. So I'm going to try to approach this from a broad level first because, and really I'll talk about, we have 7 levels, 7 ranked levels, and I'll talk about our level 1 through 3s. And they that do get approved by national and fall under the purview of actually the National Junior Competition Committee. So what a sanction is awarded, this really, the expectation is that the event will run in accordance with the USTA rules and regulations to specific standards for the consumer, right? So what we're trying to do, Laura, is create the best consumer experience possible. And we do that by putting in requirements for a bid process to run these level 1 through 3 events. There are and I think we'll get into this later into the podcast, but there are different details on that process to acquire and get a level 1, 2, or 3 tournament. And it's really open to anyone to bid, Laura. Anyone's able to do that. The 2s and 3s are a little bit more flexible than the 1s. The 1s are our highest level national events, obviously, and require more stricter regulations. And I think you did ask me maybe the benefits of a sanction. And I have to tout this because I think, I think it's really important, the sanctioning piece, okay? Because we are the governing body of the sport, and we really our obligation is to provide the best competitive pathway possible for our players, right? So with that sanctioning piece, you actually, and I'm looking at Nolan here, you get administration support, you get staff support. That's where a lot of our roles go through within all the sections. You basically, there's digital support, search and registration functions that you get for your tournament. Safe play is part of the experience if you're running a sanctioned tournament. And I have to say, this is something we're working on moving forward, but I think a lot of people know we've adjusted our player pathway, and we've tried to make it as developmentally appropriate as possible. We've tried to align it with the ADM. So when we offer events for sanction, they fall within those formats and scoring levels that are within that pathway. So it provides the consumer a more clear direction as to how they move through this competitive experience. So I could go on and on about that. And I think we do need to do more in the parent education piece to support our tournaments and tournament directors. But it's a whole package for the tournament director when they sanction an event.
That's a great, overview, and I think that was a good place to start, and it's tees up perfectly my follow-up question to Nolan. Tracy talked about some of the things that we do and some of the things that we offer. Can you talk about sort of the benefits and rules on our side in terms of the support we provide, but also, things like keeping the tournaments affordable, making sure they're offered everywhere in the state and not just maybe where it's most financially viable, and like the points, like what do the kids get by playing? So can you talk a little more specifically about Florida and what it means to have a sanctioned tournament, and what are the benefits and rules specifically in our section?
No, absolutely. And to really echo Tracy, because I think this is an important part when it comes to a sanction event, is that sanction means that you can expect a certain level of quality and you have certain expectations that of the tournament. And you know what you're getting into. And I think that that's an important part for a consumer and also for tournament directors who are interested in running it, because it gives them a sense of guidelines for what they can aim to do and what they should do to run a good and proper event. So I think that's a really important part of the tournament sanctioning process. Now, for Florida specifically, right, as you said, Laura, we're broken up into 8 different regions. That's how we organize the state, and we use that for our sanctioning to make sure that players across the section, both again on the adult and the junior and the wheelchair side, have events near them, that they're all not clustered in our major cities, right? That wealth is spread, so to speak, so that players have high level opportunities on the junior side up in the Panhandle, just as they would down in South Florida, right? I think that's a really important piece for us. And during our sanctioning process, which is, a window where tournament directors will submit 4 tournaments to be reviewed and sanctioned by our committee, that allows us to take a snapshot of the state and help us spread those tournaments to make sure that we're able to provide the opportunities that our players want and need for, especially on our junior side too, to develop into the playing into those national tournaments, those 1s, 2s, and 3s as well.
Yeah, and I think having those consistent rules you both have mentioned, Tracy, you mentioned that. I know National did a lot of work on this with the sections a few years ago to say there needs to be a set standard that, people that are playing from one section to another, obviously we share a border with Georgia, but a lot of players come here from many places in the state that now they know, okay, it's consistent rules and regulations across the country, and they're not having this vastly different experience one place that they were having another. And I know that was very, very difficult to do, but it is one of, I think, the biggest benefits that we have right now is that consistency.
I would agree, Laura. Yep, well said.
Let's talk about the process for a minute. I know, Nolan, you touched on it briefly. I'll start again on the national side. So I think we work a little bit differently than the national office does. So, Tracy, when does the national process for sanctioning adult wheelchair and youth tournaments open and close? And then who decides on granting those? Like, what's the authority body that does that?
Right. So let me start with the junior one because that's a little bit more complex. It's different for each of level 1, 2s, and 3s. And let's just say right from the start that the National Junior Competition Committee, again, has purview over offering bids for our levels 1, 2s, and 3s. And there's actually a sanctioning and schedule subcommittee that is 4 or 5 people that looks very closely at this. So it is completely committee oversight. And I will start, and also the open and closing of each of those is different for each level. So level 1 is actually the bid process now it's for a 3-year sanction now.
Okay.
We felt that was really important. Those are huge events, and it gives time for people to develop community support, sponsorships, really dig in and get some support around those bigger events. That opens in December of each year. So basically, we will send out something to the section in December of this year of when that opens. You guys can share that throughout with all your tournament directors, and anyone can apply for a bid for a level 1 event. Obviously, you're looking at not just the tournament director, but the facility, the location, weather. I hate to say that in the summer, previous experience. Just obviously, you want enough experience to work to be able to work up to run one of our gold ball level 1 events. So that is the level 1. The basically level 2s, similar, but they actually are a little bit less strict on the bid process. So it's a little bit more flexible. And then the level 3 events, sorry, I wanted to write this down to make sure because it's each level. The level 3 events are a 1-year bid, and the level 2s are a 2-year bid. The level 3 events also open in December, and the level 2 events open in the summer months. So we don't have an exact date on that at the moment, but we will get that out, obviously, in plenty of time for the sections to be able to offer those bids to whoever wants to be able to go through that process. Adult and wheelchair, that's been adjusted a little bit as well. That's a yearly bid right now.
Okay.
Adult, it's opening early this year in July. And we're in the process of getting that out right now. And those close in September. So there's quite a bit of time there to actually go through that. And it's the same for wheelchair, opens in July and will go through to September 20th. After this podcast, I'll be happy to provide some specific dates to follow up for your state to be able to view that.
Awesome. And what we'll do is for those that are open already, we'll go ahead and drop some links below the
Yep.
podcast so that you can find those easily. But that's a great overview. And I believe the adult and wheelchair committees, adult comp and wheelchair, they are the ones that approve those sanctions. Is that
Absolutely
correct?
both. It's the committee that goes through there. Yes.
Yeah. So volunteer committee, most of them have experience in that area. So it's definitely a committee driven process and at the
100%.
national level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And like I said, the review, they look at so many different aspects of what they need for that specific event. So it's not really one thing that I can say that gets you that bid, but it's the whole package, really, Laura.
So the section side is a little bit different, and we have some similar differences in terms of what's set from a fixed dates perspective and what's not. So, Nolan, can you tell us a little bit about when our process opens here in Florida? Which tournaments are sanctioned only during the specific period of sanctioning, and maybe which ones we are able to sanction year round? Because I know it varies. So give us your kind of overview, and we'll see if we have any follow-ups for you.
Yeah, no, so what we do on the section end is for all of our tournaments, again, adult, junior, and wheelchair, we set aside a specific block of usually around 6 weeks, usually the year prior. So for this year, opening September 1st, closing October 15th, tournament directors and facilities can submit tournaments of every section level, so only section level, not national. That's, like Tracy said, that's a separate process. So any Florida closed level threes, level 4 close and opens, 5 opens, 6s, 7s, and then on the junior side, junior circuits, those can all be submitted during that window for, again, our Florida sanctioning committee to then review at a later date for 2023. So during that 6 week 6 week window, anyone can submit. Once it'll close October 15th, we'll get together, put together that our committee will meet, we'll put together that information, and then we have a separate meeting to review everything, go through all of our historical data too, look at tournament directors' experiences, try and, again, like we were saying with our higher level events, map that out, make sure that we have good coverage across the state, and then get those online before 2023 so everyone can see it and register and plan accordingly.
Quite a machine that we have at the section that happens in the fall for sure. One question I have for both of you, and Nolan, I'll stay with you for a minute, is what experience or knowledge is required to be a tournament director, and how do they actually apply? Because I do think we have a little bit of a different process than National does for that as well. So can you talk about who can be a tournament director and what do they do to actually apply for a Florida tournament?
No, absolutely. Really anyone, and I say that with the sense that we do want more people. We want anyone who is interested to really reach out and say, hey, how can I do this? And there's no real prerequisite other than an interest, right? There are requirements that you need to be a safe play, safe sport trained individual. That's a must, right? That's the first step. But other than that, it's really an interest. We can work with you, any individual, to say, hey, how can we make this work, right? If you have a local facility that you work with, a local park, we can work with you to figure out, okay, how can we get this up and running? Now, that being said, right, we do have more stringent requirements for our higher level events because we expect certain things. There are certain requirements. We want the best possible people running these events to give our players the best possible experience and what they can expect from those higher level events. So for, I would say, a novice or a newer tournament director or potential tournament director, reach out and we would look to start them with either a level 7 or a lower level tournament that are these 1 day, more local focused events that can really get them comfortable, introduced into our tournament system, help them figure out the ins and outs of running an event if they haven't already run. Most of these directors do have some experience, right? But getting them onboarded, so to speak, within our system. And then from there, look to try and build them depending on what they're interested in. Apologies.
As a tournament director calling you in the middle of the podcast,
It
I
actually
guarantee
is.
it.
It's one of our level 3 tournament directors. Sorry about that, but get those a lot. Look to, depending again on what it is that they would like to do, almost like with a job, to set them on a pathway to say, hey, do we want to run higher level events and see how they can build to get there? Because we don't want people to feel like it's stagnant and only the same people get the same level of events. That's absolutely not at all what we want to do. We want this to be an active, a lively environment so that, people can expect and experience new things, go to different facilities, right? And give people the opportunity for growth, to grow within our system, because that's absolutely what we're looking to do, to promote a diverse group of tournament directors and diverse events. That's hugely important to us. Now, The good thing with that as well is you say, again, our window is September 1st, October 15th. I'm the new tournament director. Has just come to Florida. It's November 1st. Well, hope is not lost. You can still reach out because our our sixes and sevens, both for our
Right.
adults, juniors, and on the wheelchair side, those are on a rolling sanction, meaning that while we still have this window for directors to submit these events, you can still apply throughout the year. We have that, and we take those, as one-offs, so we can fill any gaps, right, that in that schedule and in the calendar. So we can work with you, especially depending on where you are, which region of Florida you're in. We can work with you to find an event on the calendar or make an event and find a spot for you. So we can work with you. And again, I think that's important to say, because there's, even for our tournament directors that do apply, you can still apply for some of these events throughout the year. Now, when it comes to our 3, 4s, and 5s, that we take more of a hands-on approach. We have a set requirements to say, hey, you have access to X amount of courts, that you have a history and experience running higher level events, because we don't want to throw someone in the deep end. It's not good for the player, not good for the tournament director. We want to ensure it's a good event. And so all of those requirements are available on our USTA Florida website. We send out a packet of information throughout the year, but especially prior to the opening of the sanctioning window, with what to expect from events, what we're looking for in events, kind of a calendar to say, hey, I'm in this region. This is when I should put in for this level of a tournament if it's a higher level event. That way they know, it saves them time, and they can plan accordingly as well. So we have that information all available to any interested party or tournament director on our USGA Florida website that they can go to at any time and pull that to get that info, and then they can prepare themselves to apply.
So that's a really important distinction, because I get this question a lot about, like, why, what can we do to have more tournaments, or who gets them. Is those 3, 4s, and 5s typically more experienced tournament directors? It really does happen mostly during that sanctioning window process. So that's really what gets honed in on, because it's more competitive, and we do need to make sure they're geographically distributed in a way that they're not competing with each other and it makes sense. But when it comes to, like, the 6s, the 7s, the junior circuits, that's much more free flowing. We want more of those. And if you're looking to get in, like, you're a new tournament director or you're less experienced, that's a good spot for you, and we can really work with you anytime. Those do come in during the sanctioning period, but it's not like 100% of them are done at that moment. So anybody who's out there that says, hey, I'd like to run some 6s and 7s, I notice they're not a lot in my region, they can pick up the phone and call, and we can work with them to kind of get those plugged into the calendar. It sounds like just about, any time within reason.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of a lot of those, I say lower level events, but of those entry level tournaments, because they are these 1-day events that we can be flexible with. You can have a Friday tournament. You can get creative, and we like to work with our providers to find what new ways and creative ways to get some tournaments out there for them and for their players.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that overview, for sure. So Tracy, follow up, same question for you. What experience or knowledge is required to be a tournament director at the national level, and how do they apply or bid in certain cases for these events?
Right. So, mine's a little bit shorter than Nolan's because we do, run the 3, 2s, and 1s, which you do need to have quite a bit of experience, the right facility, be in the right geographic location, like we talked about. But I think it is important to know that we work closely with our sections in bringing new tournament directors into this higher level. They would have need to have gone through the pathway at their section, probably to get a bid at this level. But it is important to know that we're constantly, for anyone that knows, this past year, we added level 2s. We have a large number of level 3s. Those are a lot more flexible as far as location and when we have them. So there's a lot of opportunity to actually get into that area from running a 4 or 5 moving up. I think, and obviously the way to get through that is to go through the bid process. Like I said, we'll get the link. And, but I think the other thing is that we're happy to have conversations about with people that are interested. They can contact Nolan and then contact us that just don't understand really what they need to do to work their way up to that, Laura. I know we've got ITF events in the country too. We're wanting to get more from the ITF in London in the US. So we'll need eventually more facilities for that. So there's always opportunities. And I think it's really best just to get into the pathway, run the 5s and 4s, and then bid or have those discussions that I'm looking to do this in the future. What do I need to do to get to that? To that level to be able to bid on that tournament. But looking at the bid packet, when they actually go on the link, Laura, they'd be able to see everything that they would need to actually get that tournament.
So get the bid packet and review it early, because you
think
don't want
so,
to wait
yeah.
to the last minute to put in. That probably does need a lot of information in there if you're looking to bid for one of the higher level events.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's quite a few requirements there.
Yeah. So that actually kind of, you said something which I really want to emphasize here, and it gets to my next question. So, we know there's a lot of competition for some particular tournaments. They tend to be on the youth side, they tend to be the higher level ones. Like, we all know this, and that's usually the ones that I get called about, like, well, why can't we get,
Yeah.
But there are areas, I think, that we do need more people to host. So, Tracy, I'm going to stay with you for a minute. From a national perspective, which tournaments do you get the most requests for? And I'm talking about youth, adult, and wheelchair. And which
Great.
areas do we need more people to step up and say, hey, I want to host this national event?
Well, there's no doubt, adult and wheelchair. We definitely are always, particularly wheelchair. We're always looking for new providers of those events. We have quite a few international events in Florida. Actually, Laura, last year we had the seniors, super seniors coming in with over 1,000 participants at least in South Florida. And we're always looking for anyone to bid on those and open those up. So I'll make sure you definitely get those links because that bid process is open now in both adult and wheelchair. And there's a lot of openings and flexibility to be able to get in on that side of it. The junior side, I think level 3s, like I said, because they're more innovative, there's a little bit more relaxed ways to run those. There's more opportunities across the country. They're more they're more positioned better across the country rather than one just being in certain regions. So those are definitely the best opportunities to run them, and probably the most people bid for those. I'm going to step into Nolan's territory here for 1 minute because they're not national events, but I am going to say, I live in Florida. My children play in Florida. They played round junior circuits this year. They played level 7s. I think they're incredible products, and we really have to expand that base in order to get more of these events going up. So if I pushed anything, they're easy to run. We've got digital tools to help run them.
Yep.
We're about to launch the World Tennis Number, which I had a podcast I know is posted
Yes,
there for
that was
people. Those are very flexible events to run. So anything to give those play opportunities to our juniors, adult, and wheelchair players is great.
That's it. I'm great. I'm so glad you plugged that. So, the WTN, definitely take a listen to that podcast if you haven't. Tracy did a phenomenal job helping us on that one. Um, Nolan, we have an interesting situation in Florida, which I think a lot of other sections have as well, is that, we definitely need more of those like 7s and 6s, but we also tend to struggle in certain geographic areas. So it's almost like a tale of multiple states. We might in one area be hosting level 6s and they all fill up, and then another area will try to host and then nobody shows up, and the tournament director says, hey, I don't really want to host this. So can you tell us a little bit about the areas specifically in Florida where, whether that's geographic or level, where we need more people to host events, and what we can do to really maybe fill up those spaces in the calendar where we might be lacking, and junior, adult, wheelchair, or anything else?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll kind of approach that in 3 ways, right? Geographical, and then by level, and then just as just kind of a general what we would like to see and what we need more of. Geographically, definitely up in the Panhandle and Southwest Florida are 2 areas where we can really look to see a lot more just involvement, I would say, from our tournament directors in that space. We have some very, passionate and experienced and great tournament directors in each area. We'd love to see more, though. The beauty with our system now is that, you can go anywhere and play an adult junior tournament, right? As long as it's not a close. But again, that asterisk aside, you can travel and play and earn points, and there's no restriction to your competition as a USTA member. So if I'm in Southern, if I'm in Texas and I'm in the Pan, there are plenty of our players up there go both ways. They'll go to Southern. Southern players will come to Florida. So you're not limited only to Florida section players anymore, which is, I think, really helpful and might not always be apparent to some tournament directors that, hey, I might be interested in doing this, but I don't think I'll get a large turnout, when that might not actually be the case. I think that a lot of our directors would be surprised to see how many players would come out as long as they actually get something going. And so hopefully too, and anyone who watches this, right, will pick up the phone, shoot me an email, give me a call, right, to say, hey, how can I get something going? Because we'll absolutely work with you to make that happen. And I'd echo that again on our adult side, just as a general, we can always use more of those 6 and 7 adult tournaments in general, right? I think that post-COVID, there was this huge boom in tennis, and we saw it especially in the juniors, but we have plenty of adult players too. And I think that now it's just the offerings of it. So any tournament director that does want to do that, we can really look to, again, kind of rebuild that base. So, but again, especially in the southwest side of the Florida area, particularly for the adults, I think that's an area that can do really well. That we would love to see some more tournament directors there. And like Tracy said too, now as a general sense, we'd love to see it as, a pyramid, right? Having the larger base to support each of those levels as we move up. Our junior circuits are particularly strong. We've built more into those areas because I think a lot of tournament directors have seen the value there. We would love to see more orange ball events as well. But again, we have JTT and other programs and other areas that do support that, that we're looking to grow as well, that are, I would say, a great addition to that tournament space. But would love to see more junior circuits, and then in particular those level 7s, because those level 7s are such a, I would say, just a great offer, because again, it's a no thrills event. If one day you can get creative with it, it's local, so it doesn't require a huge amount of, I would say, investment on the tournament director side to make it a great event. And again, we can be flexible with them when you can run them. We have a couple of tournament directors who do them on Friday evenings, and they're hugely successful. He calls them, after school events, and they're great. And so you can do that again too on the adult side. So would love to see more of those level 7s being built in there, because we certainly get a lot of level 6 requests, and level 5 obviously because they pull a large amount of players, but so do those level 7s as well. It's just, again, working in marketing and getting the word out. But that's what we would hope to see, is, I would say, more applications for those L7s. And again, because you can apply throughout the year too, so you can really say, hey, I want to do something next week, and we can look to make something happen too.
And you just touched on something, Nolan, which I think is maybe could be a light bulb moment for some of the providers listening to this too, is that because we, mostly you, are working with providers and you're seeing what's working and have these like creative ideas, is call us. If you're having trouble getting people to attend your event, we're a great resource to say, hey, maybe try something a little bit different. Somebody in your area is having success with something different. Are you open to trying that? I think in wheelchair, we're trying to do a series this year, and we have some wonderful providers who've been doing wheelchair tournaments for a long time. They do a phenomenal job, and we're trying to be more supportive in that space to say, okay, how do we connect the dots here a little bit better so that more players can come out? We can market them better. We can put more resources behind them. So I think that's a whole nother layer of support that we offer at the section in terms of idea generation, that you have become an incredible resource for, and we have some other staff digging into that space too. So if you're listening to this podcast and maybe you've tried something in the past, it didn't work, or you're really struggling to figure out, hey, where do I put this level 7 in? What day? What time of year? Where is it going to fit? Again, you have someone like Nolan who's looking at 800 of these things a year. He has a lot of things and a lot of feedback and ideas that he can share with you, that you're probably not going to get anywhere else.
And if I could just add to that too, that and this only isn't for tournament directors. Any player interested, wanting to have an event that's having difficulty, locating one, or would like to see more, reach out. I've had plenty of people reach out to say, hey, I can try and help you find events near you, put you in the right place, reach out, have you, put you in contact with someone who may be able to get something going, but also work if you're a member of a club or a facility. I've called plenty of facilities and someone said, hey, I've got 13 courts here.
Yep.
We can work and get something going. We just did that with the super senior event to get a tournament on the calendar. There's some passionate groups out there. We want tournaments for them. So this isn't exclusive to tournament directors, players as well. You can reach out and we can help get the ball going.
Yeah, great point there. If you're at a facility and you want to bring something there, definitely let us know. My next question could be complicated, so we'll just probably have to keep it as like the Cliff Notes version. But I get this question a lot, and I wanted to ask, and I'll start with you, Nolan. How does USTA Florida determine whom to give sanctions to if there are multiple requests for a particular area, let's say, and a particular level? How does that decision process work?
There's a PO box for each region that money is. No, I'm kidding.
There's an offshore account in Nolan's name.
No. So the good thing is it's not one person. It's not me, right? It's not you, Laura. It's not Jason, the director of youth department, right? It's not Christine, the director of the adult department, right? It's not one person. It's a group of individuals. It's a committee of volunteers, of staff, of USTA Florida board members, and national. Tracy and the national team joined us prior to our sanctioning window opening. We have a great conversation to discuss, okay, what is our thought process going into this? What are some thoughts from national side of things as we approach this too? Because that's hugely important to us as we make decisions, especially again with some of our higher level events, as that builds into a lot of those national events. So it's a committee's decision. We pull that information after the sanctioning window closes to kind of get that view, a presentable view to say, hey, this is what we're looking. These are the submissions for X date and X region. And we go through and we take a look at that and we have a discussion with each application to say, hey, who is this individual? What's their experience? Who else is applying, right? What are the options? How can we make this work? We very much approach everything with the mindset of we want to approve everything, right? We want to give everyone what they want, but we want to make sure that it works and it makes sense so that there's not conflicts, right? That events aren't cannibalizing each other, that we don't schedule a level 5 right next to another, a level 4, for example, though that wouldn't happen, but you get the idea that to make sure that they're scheduled and placed accordingly. So we really do approach it with this positive mindset. We want these events all on the calendar because we want to create those opportunities for our players. But so it's this committee's decisions that make those for us.
Yeah, and I think we also take input throughout the year, and I want to emphasize that point is that I've had providers reach out to me during the year and say, we don't have enough of this, and what Tracy just mentioned, hey, we need more of this other thing, or we're looking at wheelchair players who will tell us, hey, it would be really great if you guys hosted an event, doing that, during this clinic that you're hosting, why not turn this into a tournament? So all of that input that's coming in throughout the year also goes to this group to consider and say, this is what we've heard, not just what came in. And I think that group is also very proactive that if what comes in doesn't match the need, then you kind of go back and say, hey, we need to fill in some gaps here. So I know you guys do incredible work. I've had the joy of being in there for 3 years now and watching the machine, and it's been a great experience, and you guys do a great job. So thank you for sharing. Tracy, I've not been in your process. Thank you for not including me.
Well,
but how do you all decide?
Yeah, so I keep referring back again. It's not national staff. We've got one staff, maybe two, in that process, and it does go back to the National Junior Competition Committee, the sanctioning scheduling group. So when we have bids, particularly for the level 1s and sometimes 2s, it's a complete formal presentation that someone has to get that event. Like I said, the level 3s are a little bit less formal. It's really just filling out the bid, and the sanction schedule committee reviews them as they do in Florida. But I would say what you said, we do have player surveys that go out after every national event. So we keep a very close eye on those We want to make sure that, as we said, the experience is a good one. So we will address that. We have evaluators on site. We have national staff on site at all of our national events. So we keep a very close eye to make sure that, again, location. I mean, even now with weather, I mean, sometimes it's very difficult to have a summer event in Florida. I'm not saying we're not going to have them, but I'm saying when you have huge draws, sometimes it's tough to get
Yeah.
through them with the weather these days.
Yeah.
So we have to look at those draw sizes as well as to where it is and what other options we have. So all that goes into effect, but it's a completely, it's a team that reviews them, and obviously that committee changes over every 2 years, as well as that subcommittee. So it's a new group that looks at them often. I will just mention previous experience is always important there. Like I said, the consumer surveys, and really, like I said, the specific needs for that event.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I haven't really been directly involved, but I know from a wheelchair perspective, just, being able to be a fly on the wall in that committee for a few years now,
Yeah.
just really the passion that people have and their willingness to work with humans who really want to do this work, is pretty incredible and inspiring to be sitting in those rooms, and just the experience is off the charts with the volunteers on those committees.
You're right. Can I just jump in there, Laura? Because
Mhm.
I did hesitate to mention the wheelchair and adult committees. I always go back to the junior side because there's so many events on that side. So I look at that first. We have almost 300 national events across the country every year, and the amount of work and passion, like you said, that goes into determining where these go and making sure they're the best events is incredible. So they are very passionate, dedicated individuals that do this.
They're who I call when I All right. So this is my last question, and we can see if there's anything else you want to add. And Tracy, I'll stay with you. What changes or differences can we expect going into the next year, which is 2023? Do you see things changing in terms of rules, regulations, technology, like anything in any of the tournament spaces that you see coming that maybe we just want to give people a heads up about?
We're actually in the process right now of evaluating. So there's nothing hard and fast, but I can mention a few things that are being discussed. Number one, let's go back to the world tennis number. That going in as the second selection criteria behind rankings. That's on the table for January 23. And of course, we would let everyone know in plenty of time. It's just if you're using a rating in the USTA system, that's the first rating that you would use, right?
Yeah.
So that's popping up. We are looking at the draw sizes to our national events. And again, a lot of it has to do with what I mentioned as far as weather and that type of thing, and being able to accommodate a good experience for that large number of players. But really also, Laura, this goes back to when we did align the 7 levels a few years ago. We want to make sure we knew the biggest reason people were dropping out of tennis at that time is they were playing almost too high of a skill level too early. So we
Yeah.
want to make sure where, of course, I want to go play the U.S. Open, but I haven't, I don't have the skill set or at the level to play that yet. We want to make sure that players are playing in the right level. They're having level-based play. They're having competitive matches. And so we're constantly evaluating really how many tournaments we have across the country in specific levels to be able to cater or accommodate that skill level. So I don't know if that really makes sense, but we constantly review and make sure that the right ranking levels are going in, the matches are competitive, and if we need to increase or decrease those draws. So those are really the main pieces we're looking at for 23. And again, we're always looking at our rankings and making sure that they're accurate, and looking at the formats of the level 6s, the level 5s, the level 7s to make sure they're accomplishing what we're trying to do at that level.
Excellent. Nolan, on our side, I'm gonna steal one piece of thunder, which is something that I personally feel like we are going to take a look at. It's been important to me. We know the cost of running events is going up, the cost of balls, the cost of court time, and those kinds of things. And we do at the section obviously set the amount that can be charged for different events. And I've asked our team to take a hard look at that going into the next year because the margins can be small, particularly for some of these events. So we really, I think are at an inflection point at the section level to say, in order for people to want to run these events, they have to be financially viable. So we're going to take, I will just put that one out there that we are going to take a look at that as we head into sanctioning this year for all the events that we do. And I think that's a healthy thing for us to do for sure. So I know that one for sure, but as you look at the technology that we're using, Nolan, with serve tennis and sort of any rules and things that have come up with formats of play, like Tracy mentioned, or size of draws, what comes to mind for the Florida section that we might want to consider changing or doing something different in 2023?
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, Laura, we're taking a look at that right now, and anytime we do make any decisions or changes to any structure or anything else as far as our Florida level events, we'll be putting that out in communication and make that information available on our USTA Florida website so it's accessible, and to make sure that our tournament directors get that prior to the sanctioning window opening, so they know well in advance. Um, the real we want to make sure so that we don't have our tournament directors hands tied behind their back when running events. We want to make sure that they are viable, right? We want these to be good products, and we want to make sure that they're able to do that and can charge accordingly, and we want to make sure that our customers are paying a fair amount for that. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. But when it comes to the technology and the structure side, I would say no huge structural changes are coming in 2023, right? Nothing's really been discussed as far as that. We have our set parameters for each level, so that was going to remain relatively the same, I'd say. We do have more flexibility and creativity as the technology has improved as well with that. We've seen, in the ability to do team events now within serve tennis, and so that's going to be a huge push for us in 2023. It's available now, but we're really going to make sure to highlight that for 2023 events, because we think that that's really exciting and our players enjoy it, both again too junior, adults, and wheelchair. So I think that that's something that you can expect to see that may have looked different from the 2022 sanctioning window and sanctioning process. That being said as well, having WTN banded and play events, I think is going to be something that tournament directors can look to offer, as well as players can look to play in. I think that that's going to be really exciting, especially in the adult side. I think that that's going to be very interesting, and I think quite attractive for our adult players. So I say that as a new offering is going to be the biggest thing to take a look at for 2023's tournaments.
I'm particularly excited about that. I think wheelchair has really done banded play for quite some time with the ABCD divisions, and it's really fascinating to go to a wheelchair tournament and actually see this tournament where you have people of all levels playing. They're just in different divisions. And so when WTN sort of offered this type of flexibility for like youth and adult tournaments, I thought, well, from a business perspective, you just made my ability to run like a really good tournament with level-based play is one thing, but maybe even to expand it and do some really creative things. So not everything we do has to be sanctioned. Anybody who wants to try something new, try something different, we're very open to that. And I think we have some really new creative tools going into 2023 that can allow us to do some creative things. So if you're out there and you're that person that likes to try something new and different, definitely call us as well, because I think we do have a reputation for that in Florida, kind of throwing things out there every now and then, and we'd love to do that, particularly with the banded play. I'm super excited to see how that plays out.
Laura, can I just jump in there and say,
Yeah.
not only is it a provider looking for something new, but thinking about new players you want to attract, because maybe it's high school players that don't want to play ranked tournaments. Like maybe it's juniors that never want to play ranked tournaments. Maybe it's adult that just want to come out and have fun. We really want to capture just activity and be all about fun and social, and offer competitive opportunities that do that. And that's the thing that is exciting me about the WTN events as well.
That's so well said. I might be your first one to pilot a fun adult tournament that's banded, because
Love it.
yeah, I would love to see that happen. But you guys have been wonderful guests today. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. We could go on this topic for probably 4 hours. People would tune out, But there's so much information. I really wanted to share your knowledge and just have people know they can reach out if they have questions. We'll post some links below the podcast on our podcast page. But is there anything else really important that either of you would like to share with our audience before we close it out today?
I can nothing I want to share. I just want to thank everyone. I mean, this is a job that someone that's passionate, loves tennis, has played tennis, wants to get involved in tennis. I know it's a lot of work to run events, and we just want to thank everyone listening out there today, and just continue to figure out how to provide more resources and support. Like you said, how can you help reduce costs? How can we provide better parent education so that things run smoother on site? Just know we're looking at all those things, Laura, and this is the core of what we're about at the USTA right now. Really, we were built on competition and getting people into the game, and it's a very important priority for us moving forward. So.
Yeah, and I have to say thank you to the two of you. You work a lot of tournaments. You know how that feels. I know that's a very genuine sense of gratitude because you both have been out there, weekends, rainy days, getting yelled at. Like we've been in that situation, so we know sometimes it can be not fun to do. But the volunteers, the officials, the tournament directors, everybody who comes together to host these events. It's just a really special group of people. And so grateful to the two of you because you do it a lot. And grateful to everyone out there who is part of our network that does this. So I think that's a wonderful thing to end on. And thank you both for spending an hour with me today, kind of going over some of the information.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate being asked.
Well, we'll have you on again, so don't go too far, Tracy.
All right. Take
For
care,
those-
and thank you, Nolan.
For those of you who are listening to the audio only version of this podcast, you can check out the full video version on USTA Florida's YouTube channel. And of course, for all episodes of the Here to Serve podcast, including upcoming topics and dates, visit USTAFlorida.com/here to serve. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful rest of your day.